What is going on, everyone? Tis Miyanovich, and I welcome you to the Mang Dojo, the place where we process the raw struggles of men in an unprecedented paradigm. There is something inside of you that wants you to be more than what you are. But there also may be something inside of you that wants you to go down. And for some of us, that means going down for good. So, remove your ego, drop your bullshit, become vulnerable, and step into the dojo, mate. What is going on, everybody? Tis I, Miyanovich, and I have early morning Darth Vader low peanut butter voice going on right now because I had peanut butter for breakfast because I need to go to the grocery store. And welcome to the Mang Dojo, the peanut butter Darth Vader voice dojo. So I wanted to introduce you guys to our first official guest here on the Mang Dojo. A good friend of mine for a number of years, and his avatar name is Half-Deadpool. We will describe for you all why it is that we call him Half-Deadpool in the upcoming 2 episodes, and if everything goes to plan, Half-Deadpool will be a regular contributor to the Mang Dojo, as he is representative of the cascading dynamics that I am seeing now too much in middle-aged men, particularly in some of the online communities that I am involved in. At some point, everybody should be able to figure out, or will be able to figure out, because I'll say it, so I might as well just say it now, that the community that I'm talking about, which is helping to start this podcast, is a community in the interest realm of firearms. And this is where I have started a company. This is where I have a relationship with a number of people who help me to develop a company. And it is within this framework that I have been involved in tens of thousands of communications nationwide for well over a decade. The vast majority of the people in this community and in firearms in general are men, middle-aged men, of course. And it is quite easy to observe that we have a never-ending list of issues happening with men in their middle age. It is within this dynamic and in this community that I have forged a friendship with Half-Deadpool. He is probably the most recent extreme example of bad shit happening to somebody over and over and over again, to the point where it's almost impossible for that individual to deal with it alone, or it is impossible for that individual to deal with it alone. So much so that his life was probably in danger, and maybe still is, to a degree. So from this experience, from this community that we are involved in, I am starting the Mang Dojo. And the goal here is not just to have the Mang Dojo to serve this community, this online community that we are involved in, but to have it expand outward to anyone who is a man who relates to what we're saying. As you will see in this episode, this isn't exactly the alpha Chad male empowerment vibe. You should be able to ascertain that we are a little bit left of center in our politics and our philosophy. We will be reasonably talking about politics and political philosophy and the left versus the right and the center and independent people, independently minded people, non-political people. We will be talking about all of it, but we most certainly will be talking about the kind of mentalities that happen inside of men on the left of the philosophical spectrum and on the right of the philosophical spectrum, or the philosophical political spectrum, I should say. Both have implications, both have bullshit, both have things that need to be talked about, but you should be able to ascertain that Half-Deadpool and myself are probably a little bit more sensitive than your typical male empowerment crew. And we will talk about consistently the kind of anti-male, anti-masculinity sentiment that you find and the further reaches of the left side of the political and philosophical spectrum. So you should be able to ascertain that. I really want to just drop this straight in and get you guys going straight into our conversation. Again, as I said in the intro, if you're somebody who lacks patience, this is not going to be the fucking podcast for you. If you're somebody who needs things to be politically correct, you definitely are in the wrong place. Because as you see, I break the rules within the first 2 minutes. So without further ado, please step into the dojo and join me for my conversation with Half-Deadpool.
You know, we have some friends whose kids all have speech impediments, and I think it came from the first kiddo having a speach impediment, the eldest, and then the next one learns to speak from their brother, and the next one, you know, and they have some form of this dialect difference, basically. And the one who has, like, needs speech therapy, does speech therapy, and the others, I think they're just going to, you know, kind of develop out of it, maybe with more peer experience.
That's like describes we could talk about that forever, but it like describes my life, which is, I always say, imagine both of your parents were dwarves, little people, midgets. We may keep it, we might not. I'm the editor.
Dude, you just throw it out there. I'm glad I didn't do a spit take.
We're going to laugh. And then you're born normal size, and you're looking at these people for everything all the time, but you're normal size. And you grow up and you struggle with the way they do things versus what you would need. Mm-hmm. And then when you get older, you're kind of hampered by that, but your needs are very, very far away from theirs in many, many ways after you get to be an adult. Well, my upbringing is like that. My family is retarded.
Mental midgets.
Right.
Or emotional midgets, as I said yesterday about my father to my brother.
Both sides of my family, they're missing a lot of normal shit. A lot. And they're barely functioning in the world. Some members are really functioning more so than the others, but they don't, I would not look at them and go, these people function well in the world. They don't. They have a bare minimum capacity to go out and do things, and they immediately have to retreat back into their house. They have to retreat back into their cave because they just don't do well out there. And so it is a form of regression, and I am not that way. Like, at all. I go out there and I have weird shit that I have to deal with, like social fears or whatever. That's kind of normal, but I am not that way. They, however, tattooed their patterns onto me.
Right.
And so here's this tension and struggle between what I actually am and what I'm capable of and what they were fucking tattooing on my brain. And then you spend a lifetime figuring this out and then going, wait a minute, that's not me. I'm not that. I'm the opposite of that. Why do I do this shit? Why do I say things like this? Why am I afraid of this?
Yeah.
Right? So it's very similar to the speech thing where some kids are just patterning, right? And they're going to grow out of it, but other kids are not going to grow out of it.
Yeah. I'm at a similar nexus. It's kind of interesting. And perhaps the pattern is, you know, you approach, I'm, 39, approaching 40. I just say I'm 40. You approach 40 and maybe this is, your third puberty, as I jokingly call it. You got your teens, then your 20s, then somewhere in your 30s. So maybe fourth change. I don't know if it was just the pandemic or a lot of things, my burnout that I experienced, but I struggle greatly now socially. And my entire life have been led by my social abilities and my comedy. Mm-hmm. And I find myself having far more anxiety about stuff like going to Costco. That's just a nightmare. That's probably the worst example to bring up. But even, going to the grocery store, going and doing social things. We used to have the entertainment house, we would always be the ones to host the parties and stuff just because we were cool with everybody coming and going. And now I really struggle with those things. And it's interesting because, like you said, my parents rarely leave the house. Grandma and grandpa rarely left the house. Mm-hmm. They have these emotional social deficits, which I developed sort of in the face of that adversity. Like we've said before, many people who are comedians develop that as a survival mechanism.
Sure. To
provide some safety. Now, I don't even want to say provide levity just for the sake of like, man, this is a good audience, like, but for safety, like got to distract mom before she hits one of us kind of thing.
Fuck yeah.
So it's interesting that you're saying that. Cause I'm still learning and developing through it because I'm approaching about a year of, January is going to be a year of really kind of going through a lot of the stuff that we can dive into, in this recording.
Let's come out of the stream of consciousness talking that we started with and frame for a second.
Yeah, whatever you want.
So you're in something that I'm observing in myself and many, many other people from the shared community that we're from. And that is men of middle age. We could define that as however. It could be 30 to 60, who are entering into this stream of uncontrollable, cascading negative events, period. Things are slipping out of control, and that is building, right? It's building inside of them, and it's building outside of them. And their normal ability to cope, to put the brakes on, to influence what's going on internally or externally is decreasing. Whereas previous to this, whatever the challenges were, internal or external, there was a pretty good match between internal capacity to control like the internal power to control what's happening with oneself inside or outside. It's a pretty good match for a while there in life. Mm-hmm. But now there's this discrepancy between what men can do to help themselves or to heal themselves or to find strength or to dig in. That reservoir is decreasing and the problems are increasing. The challenges are going one way, and the ability to affect or to dig in on the challenges is going the other way.
I think a lot of issues that we have collectively, societally, right? Not a great analogy, but our incomes aren't matching the house of or price of housing. Stuff like that causes stressors. The shift in the home, stay-at-home dads. How many now stay-at-home dads, self-employed people are there versus who knows? 60s, 70s, whatever. It'd be interesting to see how many, parallels there are, but certainly, like you said, with men in particular.
Yeah. Which is why we're here.
Yeah, exactly.
So this dynamic of cascading problems has in our circle, and I know in other circles too, is reaching or has reached lethal implications for men. Men have died that we know because of it from their own hand. And, suicide and suicidal ideation is not rare inside of this cascading dynamic. As a matter of fact, I would consider it normal. Being so, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say, it's the fact that you just said that out loud. I don't know if I have put it together like that. When I'm very open about my experiences, my suicidal ideation since childhood, my depression. I feel like there's probably some catharsis and healing when I speak about it, but I'm also very much like community connector. Let's heal together. Let's talk about stuff. It's nice to be able to provide others with a venue for that. But when somebody, a man in particular, tells me that they have never had a suicidal thought or they aren't suicidal, I'm kind of like, what? Bullshit. Mm-hmm. Like, that's super normal feeling. It's so normalized to me. And I know enough people that when I hear someone's like, nope, I've never thought that. Mm-hmm. It's weird. It's almost foreign to me.
Yeah.
Which is sad, right? Yeah.
I didn't have so I guess there are a number of phases of that, where the first phase is you don't want to be dead, but you don't really want to be alive either. And I lived inside of that until I was probably 21 years old, where I had catharsis and crisis and a major evolution for myself. And a lot of brain chemistry issues were happening because of alcoholism and food addiction and an abusive upbringing and all of that. But I had a major, hey, hold on a second. I like myself. I want to be alive. I like me. I like life. I want to enjoy this. That was the first time I had, and when I was 21, it was the first time I had ever felt that, stated it, and stood by it.
That's huge.
Yeah. Some people perhaps never reach it, but so up until I was 21, I was never like, I want to fucking kill myself. I've never felt that. Mm-hmm. There might have been one time, but it wasn't a normal thing for me. After that, from 21 until about, I don't know, a couple years ago, probably 2 or 3 years ago, I didn't have a single thought or feeling anywhere near the realm of I don't want to be alive. But a couple years ago, I started having cascading shit happen. Not as intense as yours, but slower. And it most certainly, which we'll talk about eventually, in my mind, is related to neurochemicals and hormones, because I do all the things right? I do everything right. I eat whole and organic foods. I exercise like a mother, cardio, weights. I don't let negative people in my life. I don't let negative thoughts into my head.
Water.
I'm probably terrible with water though. I'm probably have been chronically dehydrated. But yeah, I'm awful with it. As an aside, I tell my kids this, I do have like water aversion. And I think it's because the water in the pipes where I grew up was so fucking bad. The water tasted so fucking bad. I didn't want to be around it.
Oh, I see it a lot so we have really good water where we're at. And where I used to live, same state, was voted like best water in America, time after time after time. We have a lot of people from out of state that visit, specifically California, and they're so used to, toxic, scary water, bottled water.
Yep.
Right? I know some people who refuse to drink out of the faucet, and you're like, that is from a glacier's ball sack. Like, you're not going to get anything purer and closer to the beauty of what true, like, good water can do for you. And they're like, nah, man, I got to get this plastic bottle open and get anything.
I would rather get the estrogen inducing fucking microplastics than to go anywhere near a fucking water faucet. I have that.
Excuse me, do you have any microplastic count on this, Dasani? Is it better than the Arrowhead? Like, is it like a half a credit card or like 19 Legos? Like what are we using here?
There's like, for people, they have pictures of testes on the label of the Dasani, like, and if it's the testes are really super shrunk down and small,
it's like the European version where they show you the health implications of things,
or the middle testes. But it isn't. They don't use a picture that's gross. They just use like a cartoon testes, like small cartoon testes, middle. Anyway, I do all the right things.
Sure,
but a couple years ago, boom. I could notice it. It's like every 6 months.
Did it slowly kind of creep in?
Yes.
Or was it like a definitive, finally you go, man, I've been sleeping horribly for a month. I've been sad, or I've been upset or irritable, or.
It has been a slow downward, noticeable thing that I can mask easily with lots of yerba mate, lots of exercise. I live in a beautiful area. I'm busy with my kids. I have a lot of intellectual work that I need to do. It's easy to mask over, but starting at 35, I went in. I don't want to get into my side because we're really here to talk about you today. And this fucking podcast will be hearing from me all the time, but definitely it's a crisis of stress and cortisol. And the effects of a lot of cortisol and things going on with digestion and blood sugar. And it just started when I was 35 from having kids and running a business and probably a testosterone change. And then that's been going on until a couple years ago where I was like, it doesn't matter how much I grind now. You're going down, man.
Dude, well, and, I mean, imagine the people who are not putting in the work, how bad it is.
Fuck.
Where I was a year ago, I lost 60, stopped drinking, went into this adrenal crisis or a dopamine crisis. I still don't have a diagnosis because it's so like finite and the specific endocrinologist has to say it, but I'm literally like one single point away from being able to call it that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's literally like I'm not dead yet. And then they poof, like hit you on the head.
Yeah.
God, what was I just saying?
Well, we were talking about the gradual decrease.
Oh,
and
yeah. Oh, the environmental.
Yeah.
So I think if I had continued to drink alcohol and eat the way I was eating, and not exercise and not taking care of myself, I would have had a further drop than I even had, which almost killed me, almost killed me. I almost took my life, like both and it wasn't one or the other.
Yeah. Which is what we're going after here today. We're going to dig into that. Most people aren't self-aware. Most men are not self-aware. I think in an evolutionary sense, we have a tendency to not look inward because I always say this, even though it doesn't match up with the science. If you have to go out and punch the balls off of a fucking dinosaur, you can't really be a snowflake. You can't really be like, God, my feelings today about this. You have to go and punch the balls off the dinosaur and work out your fucking feelings later. And if there's dinosaurs you're punching the balls off of every other day, then what's that going to do to your DNA or the generational expression of maleness? And so it's kind of obvious that males have a compartmentalization with their emotions and their emotional intelligence, and we suck with it generally. And it costs us. So you're saying, what about the people that don't take care of themselves? Well, yeah, what about these people that simply are not connected to self-awareness? And so is it any wonder all of the cancer and the stress and the suicide?
Oh, buddy, my brother, my older brother moved in with us in crisis. We got sober at the same time. I lost those 60 pounds, probably due to this massive hormonal dump of the stress cortisols and the ACTH and all this, adrenal stuff. But then I got back into my workout patterns, dealing with a bunch of chronic pain stuff, which we can go into detail, but need a hip replacement. I've had neck and back injuries. But the difference between my brother and I, he still eats fast food, McDonald's, Arby's, Subway, Burger King, still eats a lot of sugary candy to help in his sobriety, and drinks Pepsi. It was a good way for him to get through the sobriety element for long enough, but he's, 320 pounds. He had a foot surgery, which for sure set him back in April. It has not healed like it was supposed to, and they have to do a second one, right? It's kind of like he's a victim of circumstance for sure in many ways, but he's not aware.
Yeah.
Like, what do I need to do to take care of myself? What is my body saying? He is just into food, chemical, sugar addiction. He's super sad and depressed. We can't get him in to see a therapist because that's really a Hail Mary thing to access here where we're at. And so the difference just in us, we're siblings. I'm aware. I'm participating. I'm putting in the work. He's not. And you look at us side by side and you're like, whoa, you guys are same environment, same genetics or similar genetics because we're half siblings, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. This is one of the reasons why we're talking today is you're right about if you weren't self-aware, you'd probably be dead. And that's something that I sensed, that's where we were with you. And that's why this podcast has started. And I wanted to do something similar to this and was thinking about it for about 2 years. But in our group, I've already been through somebody close to me blowing their fucking brains out. I've already done that. And we're not doing that again.
I appreciate that.
If I can help it, we're not doing that again. And I know other people in our group have also said to me, man, I was on the edge. I was going to do it. Just from being a middle-aged man and something that you think wasn't that big of a deal, that's just grinding away on them a little bit. And they just start having thoughts about maybe I should just fucking end this.
Well, it's sort of like what just happened to my brother I was talking about. And I use the analogy of my mother kicking the leg out of the chair. It's like my brother was barely sitting there, barely balancing, and my mom kicked that leg out of the chair and my brother fell. He relapsed. I just found this out 2-3 days ago. He relapsed and he was extremely suicidal.
Yeah.
And he, due to many reasons, did not share that with me, even though we have an extremely open conversation, open feelings, household, and relationship.
Let me sidebar this too, because you mentioned Arby's. Yeah. Comedy is a major part of both you and I and our relationship, and comedy is a major part of this podcast. It will have to be.
Yeah, I would love it.
But you brought up Arby's, and I just wanted everybody to know if you can just get in touch with the old school Arby's. So like the old school Arby's had the big purplish brown giant cowboy hat. You can look it up on Google. Just image like old school Arby's logo or something.
Okay.
I'm just telling you, everyone straight. That is not a hat. That is a fucking cock, right? It's not a hat. And I don't know how they got away with that.
How many years before they changed it, before someone's like, hey, Bob, come in here?
That I was probably 6 years old. And by the way, when growing up in Pittsburgh, my scene was you were saying the F word when you were 5 and 6 constant. Like that's what your parents chain smoked around you and you said fuck when you were 6. Like that's where I'm from. And we would drive past that Arby's on McKnight Road in Pittsburgh. And I would not say it out loud, but, I would be like, that's a fucking dick. That's not a fucking cowboy hat. Like who's buying that? Who's thinking that's a cowboy hat? Cause that's a cock.
I'm doing like a I jokingly call it the Mancala effect instead of the Mandala effect because it makes people with tism upset when you mispronounce things. But that Mandala effect, I'm like literally drawing a big dick in my head with the Arby's logo. I can't picture the actual logo, so thank you for that.
You just have to look up old school Arby's, or I'll send it to you after. But I wanted to get that little laugh in there because anytime somebody talks about Arby's, that's the first thing I think about.
The last time I had Arby's was probably 15 years ago, 20 years ago in the town I lived in, and I was just like, even then I got really into fitness around 18 to 22 is when I was boxing and bodybuilding, and I got into nutrition and stuff before I hurt my neck and my back with job-related stuff. And I stopped doing fast food, and I remember the exact location of the Arby's. I don't even know if it's still there in the town I used to live in. Pretty gross stuff, dude.
Yeah.
Pretty gross. Like we eat fast food so infrequently here that when we do have it, my kids, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
They struggle to eat the stuff. You know, if you get like a Happy Meal, we're like, hey, here's this special treat. Yeah. You know, we're driving on a road trip and they're going through it like, this isn't food. Apples shouldn't look like that. This didn't come from our tree.
Yeah.
You know?
Once my kids have the same thing where I make sure they know what everything tastes like. Like we've gone to Subway, we go to McDonald's, right? We're going to do.
Here's a Taco Bell.
We've had all of the Monster cereals. Fucking Boo Berry, fucking Frankenberry, fucking Count Chocula. They know what a Twinkie tastes like. They know what a Ho-Ho tastes like. Right.
Yeah.
And when you feed them like actual awesome gourmet donuts and amazing fucking grass-fed, grass-finished hamburgers, you hand them this stuff and they're like, this is dog shit. Why do people, people don't know any better.
Dude, apple juice. Okay. Every kid's meal in America, the like healthy option as an alternative to soda is a box of apple juice. We have 3 trees in our backyard. We go and do an apple cider press with our neighbors and make and pressure can our own cider for the year.
Yeah.
And it sounds like, you know, bougie hippie shit, but it's fun. And my kids have grown up with it. And so if we go anywhere and they offer apple juice, my kids will either ask for water or they'll be like, I'll take the water, or they'll get the box. We'll go through the straw poking and all this stuff and they'll taste it and they'll like literally like dribble it out of their mouth and almost be like, excuse me, garçon. Is there something wrong with your apple juice? It is fucking terrible.
It is bougie, but it's also great. It's good for your kids to be able to recognize, between this is garbage fast food. That's what I'm eating, and I'm eating it for entertainment.
Man.
I'm not eating fast food. I'm just eating it for like taste, entertainment. This is not fucking nutrition.
Yeah. Dude, if it wasn't my wife, there's no way we would have the health and nutrition. There'd be no way I'd be into hunting and trying to garden and do all the stuff that we do. She's just super into it, and it's super important to her, and it has been, and it always will be.
Yeah. Let's come back to and I are riffers, so we're gonna keep taking circuits.
Let's go back to the Arby's. So it's shaped like a penis.
Let's go back to the Arby's. That's a dick hat. Okay, next. So it looks like a sickly dick. Like you'll see it. It looks like an old man who's had syphilis.
Oh my gosh!
It should be like a purple hat. It kind of flops. It's a cock. It's a cock.
100%.
It's an old guy's sickly cock. The guy, he was at Iwo Jima. He landed at Iwo Jima or some shit. And he got exposed to chemicals in the army. And then 20 years later.
This is the origin story, right?
They took a picture of his dick, and then Arby's was like, that's our hat.
Sandwiches.
Right. We're going to sell beef. Why not use this beef picture? So your screen name, your avatar name is Half-Deadpool. And that is because you have been half dead in my eyes for like 2 years. Everything you fucking say in our chat is like, I might as well be fucking dead, or I'm fucking half dead, or I'm in deep fucking shit. So everybody that's listening, don't be fooled by the calmness of Half-Deadpool's sultry, calm voice. This is the way this is the way he presents himself. But underneath, he is a dude that for 2 years straight has been in lethal fucking trouble. For sure. for sure. And there has been struggles from tip to tail and trying to get help and the medical industry and getting people around him to fucking believe him and what he's saying and feeling like shit about himself for not being able to do the things he normally does or not being able to fix himself. This is all happening with you. We're joking about dick hats, but let's remember that we're here because you have a cascade of crises that basically is past your ability to deal with it.
For sure. With a foundation of like Jello, to build upon, to have the skills to even process along the way, let alone when those crises mount.
Yep.
And then you're dealt with how do I take care of this?
Yep.
Which it's a can of worms. But when you don't have a really solid foundation, solid skill sets from childhood, you're sort of just backtracking and swimming and paddling. Remember that meme that I think we've shared before where somebody's drowning and their hand is the last thing in the last frame above the water and somebody comes and high fives them instead of like pulls them out of the water. I saw that once when I was super depressed and I was just like, yeah, man. Like, yeah.
That's me.
Like what you were talking about, the medical system. It took 18 months for me to get a psychiatrist. Then I got a resident. They left. The person who replaced them nearly pushed me over the edge to take my life. Then I finally got an amazing, caring career psychiatrist. And that took about 2 years.
Yeah.
So when people say like, just hang on there, Benny, have you thought about therapy? Just think positive thoughts and hang in there because it'll get better. You're like, 700 days. You want me to just keep marking 700 days of needing help. And that's just the psychiatry side. That's not to mention any number of other things, talk therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, unique things, spirituality, exercise, right? It's been a fascinating journey that sort of motivates me not only to participate in this podcast, but looking past my career choice for the last decade or two, getting into helping others. It's an interesting thing when you kind of survive stuff. Will I have the capacity to eventually kind of help more people than just myself and my brother right now?
Yeah. And that's something we should talk about too. I don't know if we'll get to it in this segment today, but the issue with men being helper men and helping other people by not helping yourself. So it's like a razor's edge. If you want to be like, well, we want to help men, we want to help people. But the issue is when you have people like myself or Mr. Mr. HDP, we come from families where we were forced to be the helper. We were forced to be the helper over perhaps attending to the things that we needed to attend for our own development and our own growth. And we carry these patterns into adulthood, and we are the dudes that go out and put out the fucking fires for everybody else while we're being hurt and fucked over. And this is just like stacking for years and years and years. And I'm sorry, but that's not manhood. I'm not sure exactly how we define manhood. I think it's an issue with gatekeeping it or masculinity, but it is certainly not congruent to strong, healthy masculinity for you to be someone who puts out fucking fires all the time for everyone and attracts people that need fires put out constantly, and you just keep doing it because your survival instinct essentially from growing up was you just do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Whether it comes from a place of like true value of those relationships and supporting people, whether it's a neighbor, goes out of town, needs her plants watered and her cat fed, something seemingly small, but it might interrupt my life and I probably should have said no, or the bigger stuff. And it can come from a place of people pleasing.
It doesn't match very well when you're in middle age and this cascading starts and you need perhaps special backup and special assistance to help yourself with this, but you continue to be the guy that attracts people who, whether they intend it or not, kind of don't give a fuck about your cascade because they're so fucking self-absorbed with being a problematic person that's what they are. That's what they think about is themselves. And you're supposed to help them. So they're not really sensitive to the fact that perhaps you're sliding down a hill, right? And you're not saying anything about it. You continue on with your role. And you seem to be a strong person who has it all together, but you start to grow and look at like a grown, strong pillar of a man. And so you start attracting more people like that. Mm-hmm. And you don't have the ability to say no. Is it any wonder how the cascading gets worse?
And it took me, I was so sick. I couldn't eat. I had zero libido. It was a struggle for me to drink water. Like I said, I lost 60 pounds. I think like start to finish, it was almost only 3 months, mm-hmm. which is really quick to drop that much weight. It's not just fat. I'm talking muscle, probably bone, probably neurons, heavy brain material gone forever. Yeah. But it took me getting sickly ET looking, walking around my neighborhood. I developed dementia symptoms mm-hmm. from being so sick and depressed. My doctor finally confirmed. She's like, oh yeah, those are all dementia symptoms. It finally took me being like that and engaging with people like my neighbors to be like, I appreciate you thinking of me, but I can't. And then fill in the blank. I can't help you with that. Or the kids can't come over. I can't parent my own kids right now. I can't have a play date. You can take the kids. That's it. I can't help with this. And it took a good 6 months of the people closest in my life to sort of like retrain our social interactions and social behaviors and stuff, because I'm the I know a guy. It's a joke in my family. I got a bunch of family from Long Island. You'll hear me when I get real amped up, start mm-hmm. doing the New York bit. It's the I know a guy thing. I'm the I know a guy. Somebody needs a purple Lamborghini and they can afford it, I'll fucking find it. You need to find maple leaves from North Michigan rainforest, I'll know a guy to find you this syrup or something. And it's just something I do. And so I'm always, like you said, helper, jump into it. Not for profit, not for gain, I don't know why. Yeah. And I've done it substantially less since I really hit some better health metrics. I say no a lot more. Having to say no to clients as somebody who's self-employed and doesn't have a source of income really right now, which is a major stressor.
Yeah. Oh, fuck.
Selling as much random stuff that I own online just to kind of be able to chip in, to be like, hey, wife, you're working full time, supporting our mortgage, our groceries. You're doing the cooking and cleaning along with me. You're doing all this hard work. I'm not making money. Oh, and I'm also sick. That makes me feel great. I'm like, yeah. I'll sell another gun. I'll sell another camera. I'll sell another guitar, whatever I need to. Saying no to work is a really weird thing. And I just did it a couple days ago on a huge project. And man, was it a relief. It was incredible. So being able to be empowered enough and be honest too. I know it's a professional engagement and you're not allowed or supposed to cross feelings and self and life into your work or whatever. But I was just honest with this guy. We've been acquaintances and kind of friends for probably a decade, and previous client. And I said, you know what? Because he emailed me and said, hey, where are we on this project? Are we going to do it? I said, I've been putting this email off because I've been really upset every time I try to write it. But I don't have the mental, physical, or emotional capacity remotely to serve you. And I think you'd be better served, hiring someone else in the state that you're trying to work in versus me trying to make some money right now. I said no amount of money that I could charge you would be ethical to cover like the travel and stuff and the extra money that I would need to recuperate and heal.
Yeah.
If I worked for this project and did a month of stuff, I would be back at zero again, Randy.
Yeah. I agree. I know you would.
I would be at zero and I'd be all sick and I'd be nauseous and I couldn't eat and I'd lose weight again. I wouldn't be exercising for what? For financial gain. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And what a vicious cycle to be stuck in. But it was empowering is, my point. I did it and he wrote back and said, I'm so sorry. I love you. Mm-hmm. Focus on your faith, your family, your friends. And just let me know if you need anything. And it was really genuine, and I was afraid of that interaction and I shouldn't have been.